Hello. Yeah. First, I just want to make a quick plug that I am putting together a Spotify, and it's going to be public searchable companion playlist to go along with these shows. So if you are interested in hard rock music or old school rock music or basically anything that we talk about, and maybe you haven't heard it before, you can search Rock Talk featuring Dave and Brian, and you'll find it on Spotify. And everything that we talk about, I am going to try to link to that playlist so you can actually go back and listen. Um, Yeah, no problem. I know that sometimes we talk about stuff and I'll go, oh man, I haven't heard that in forever. And then like I kind of forget about it. But I thought it would be cool if we
Oh,
had them all like docked together in one place.
well, I hope the microphone muted this entire time to make it even more awkward to watch.
Okay, how do we check? Can we check it?
Well, I guess we'll just have to wait for the chat.
All right. So where do you want to start? Do you want to start with
No,
Dave's
it's not
pick? You want to
doing it.
start with my pick? Do you have a pick, Brian, that you want to start with?
Uh, Not particularly. Why don't we just was there like a earliest of '89 release like that you can tell, or was it all just like was there a
I don't have a
January or like
chronological like date listing on any of these, but how this topic kind of came about is Dave mentioned that he kind of wanted to discuss Nirvana's debut album, and then I mentioned that I wanted to talk about Pretty Hate Machine. And in trying to find a thread, they came out only like 3 months apart. Pretty Hate Machine just celebrated its 30th anniversary last week, actually, probably 2 weeks ago now at this point. And it looks like Bleach came out in the summer of that same year. So, kind of interesting what an influential turn rock music and music in general kind of took leading into that grunge era, which I don't necessarily consider Pretty Hate Machine a grunge album. It's definitely an industrial album.
yeah, yeah.
But
Yeah.
when we pulled it up, we looked and there's so much good stuff that came out that year. Disintegration by The Cure, Paul's Boutique by the Beastie Boys, Faith No More's first album. There's a lot of really good stuff then. So I want to talk about Nine Inch Nails. So can we talk about Nine Inch Nails for a little
Let's
bit? I
talk
guess
about
Yeah.
how
it.
Dave moves us around.
Yeah, let's talk about it.
Yeah, I don't know why this worked so well for Dave and Brian Live. I don't know why I can't make it more than just like thumbnails.
Now,
It's
The-
not working.
before we delve into the actual album, the way I heard it was Trent Reznor worked as a janitor overnight in that music studio. He wasn't actually a musician yet, and he would take some time every night and record parts of a track, and then that's how Pretty Hate Machine got created. Did you hear
Yeah,
anything
Pretty
like
Hate
that?
Machine is his
Yeah.
like basically his solo brainchild. He did 100% of the writing. He plays almost every single instrument on it. Um, it is like very deeply personal to him. But I know now when he does interviews about it, like Spin Magazine had a really great anniversary article about it, where he doesn't even like relate to who he was as a person then, which is kind of interesting to me to
Yeah.
have gone through, the evolution of that album, and then now he's so far removed from that.
Hmm.
I know everybody, like when you think Pretty Hate Machine, you immediately think Head Like a Hole because
Yep.
it's the album
Yeah.
opener, the single that came off of it, and it's still a staple in Nine Inch Nails shows.
Oh yeah.
But I think Head Like a Hole like starts at such a high, but that album just keeps it so high energy from
Yeah.
there.
My understanding is he was a musician, but he didn't have the money
Oh, I see.
to to have studio time. So he took whatever job he could get at the studio and use it as a way to barter for studio time.
That's a
So
smart move.
basically, he's
Yeah.
like, hey, I'll do whatever you want. You want me to clean the bathroom? I'll do that. You want me to do sweep the floors? Whatever. Just I'll work, and then you give me time in the studio.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense. But yeah,
I don't know why I can't fix this.
what Brandy mentioned is actually like it's always been a part of Nine Inch Nails. Is Trent Reznor can play the drums, the guitar, the bass, and he can sing, and he can play the keyboards.
Yeah, he's an amazing pianist.
Yeah, and he composes and writes music and lyrics, not just lyrics, but also compose the music. So yeah, what Brandy said is very true, and it's been since the beginning. Is Nine Inch Nails is Trent Reznor. The musicians that you see on tour and record with him in the studio are a revolving list of musicians. They actually include the lead singer of Filter was one time a guitar player for Nine Inch Nails.
That's really cool. I did not know that. I have always been a really big Nine Inch Nails fan. I will be honest with you, I was not terribly old in 1989. So my first introduction to Nine Inch Nails came through Downward Spiral. After I listened to Downward Spiral several times, then I kind of went back and fell into Pretty Hate Machine. And those two were still definitely my favorite albums. But the more I listen to them now, I feel like Pretty Hate Machine's the stronger of the two overall. Mm-hmm. I think that they're, other than like I say, everybody automatically associates Head Like a Hole, but there are some absolutely amazing songs on there. I think Terrible Lie is an amazing song. I think Sanctified is amazing. Probably my favorite track on the album is Sin. I think it has such a driving industrial beat to it and just really, really great song overall.
So I'm going to go ahead and read the track listing for anybody who might not be familiar with this album. Head Like a Hole, Terrible Lie, Down in It, Sanctified, Something I Can Never Have, Kinda I Want To, Sin, That's What I Get, The Only Time, and Ring Finger. And on the 2010 remastered edition bonus track, Get Down and Make Love.
This eloquent, that Trent.
I think this ties in well to what we were talking about before with Halloween Horror Nights about they did the 80s and the 90s. As far as music goes, albums like this are what I consider the pivot point because it's a little bit of 80s, but this is like pushing into what became the 90s.
Yes, definitely. Mm-hmm. I'm totally with that. And if you look at all the albums that came out, especially like the rock albums that came out in '89, it was definitely a change.
Why did that just shut off?
Yeah. But
you're not. Why don't you have the stream up?
Oh, I was looking at the track listing. We seem to be going.
I think we're not.
No, I see Brandy moving. I don't see us moving.
No, I think y'all are froze.
Okay. Stand by.
Froze in.
Technical issues.
The camera just turned off. So.
Yeah.
And also, I think when the show started, we were muted. So yay! Jeez.
We were definitely live when I checked the headphones.
Yeah, I did a sound check too. I hear your audio.
Okay.
And then maybe it was just a little bit in the beginning. So yeah, everything I've tried here, I cannot get this to be full screen like it was right before we went live.
Yeah.
Literally right before we went live.
And a weird Horror Nights Nine Inch Nails connection. I remember for Horror Nights 26, Head Like a Hole was played throughout the park at certain points.
I can see that. I mean, it's got kind of a creepy vibe to it.
Yeah.
I think that there's probably some deeper Nine Inch Nails cuts that could fit right into Horror Nights.
Sure.
Especially, they do a lot of ambient music now. And one thing I mentioned to Dave earlier is it's bizarre to me kind of to see how Trent Reznor has really like ingrained himself in American society, like mainstream normalcy society. Him and Atticus Ross, it was just announced they are doing the score for the new Pixar movie. So to think that you've come from pretty Hate Machine to Pixar, like that's a pretty
that's kind of
interesting journey.
Of every generation is a rebel and fights against the man and establishment, and given enough time they become the establishment.
Yeah.
Right.
But I mean, it's not like this is the first movie Trent Reznor has ever composed for.
Oh no.
I mean, he also
he won an Oscar for The Social Network.
Yeah. Now was his music in The Social Network kind of heavy, kind of Nine Inch Nails-ish?
No, I mean, it definitely has a more ambient quality about it. It definitely has an industrial tone to Sunset, but The Social Network is obviously a tech-driven movie, even though it's the storyline of Mark Zuckerberg. It definitely has tech elements to it. It feels very appropriate. I don't know, the new trailer for the new Pixar movie actually just came out today called Soul. I don't know if you guys saw it or not. It's going to have Jamie Foxx and Tina Fey in it, and it's about a jazz musician. So very interested to see how they incorporate elements of jazz with that Reznor, Atticus Ross kind of style. Plus Pixar, I don't know. When I think Pixar, I just think like Randy Newman, like You Got a Friend in Me. Or something. I don't know.
Oh, fun.
Brandy, are we frozen on your screen to you?
I just see me.
Okay.
I switched it. Wow.
Oh, and then you are froze.
Yeah.
Froze.
Oh my gosh.
Y'all know what you need to do since you're frozen? You need to let it go.
Yeah. So let's move on, Brandy. What's the next album from 1989?
Dave's pick earlier, I think Nirvana's Bleach, even though it wasn't the breakthrough hit for them, it was definitely very influential to the whole cultural scene of rock in general when it happened. A lot of those are covers. Dave can talk a lot more on it, but it includes musicians.
Did you say David?
Beyond just Kurt, Dave, and Chris. So.
Well, the interesting thing about actually, there's more musicians than I realized. So, just ignoring the cameras for now because I gave up on that. So Bleach was obviously the debut album, and was released June 15th, 1989 by Sub Pop.
Mm-hmm.
And the main recording session started at Reciprocal Recording in Seattle. And do you know who was the drummer for that initial recording session?
Would have been his name was also Dave, but not Dave Grohl. It was Crover. Correct?
It was Dale.
Dale Crover. Yes, that's right. Yes.
I don't remember if I knew that. He was originally their first drummer, and they recorded that in this studio, which closed in 1991, and actually featured another guitarist.
Yeah, it was he ended up leaving Nirvana and going to the military.
Who is I have these. I'm going out of order again. So yeah, it was a 5-hour session in December 24th of 1988 with Jack Indiro. Indiro, I'm not sure how it's pronounced. And there's actually a video I was going to watch about it from an interview of him from past few years, which is interesting. And the other guitar player was on the is on the cover of Bleach.
Yeah.
And then they said that they attempted to re-record it with their at the time new drummer Chad Channing, but they ultimately decided to go with the recording they had already made.
Now, didn't you say it was like $800 to make that album? It was some like crazy like small amount of money.
Don't know, but they said that the recording was like a little over $600, and that someone else actually paid for it. But interesting side note about that recording studio, it was also used for Soundgarden, Mudhoney, and the Screaming Trees.
Oh,
before shutting down.
Old grunge stomping grounds.
Yeah. And another weird thing is,
I think they're really underrated.
What? Who is?
I love the Screaming Trees. Yeah. I think they're really underrated, especially when you talk about Seattle grunge bands. Like, you automatically talk about Nirvana, Pearl Jam, and Soundgarden, and I feel like that's the only three that get mentioned. But Screaming Trees is a sleeper pick for sure.
They're a one-hit wonder. Did they ever do any other albums besides?
No, they had a couple singles. They had All That I Know, and
Still alive, okay.
How about I'll look them up and put them on the playlist? How about that?
All right. The other strange thing that happened that I just found when I was doing a little bit of research for this is that Nirvana played Paper Cuts in a Radio Shack.
Oh.
And recorded. You can find video on YouTube of that. I guess they were trying to do it as a low budget music video because you can tell that they did multiple takes because you can see it's really weird to see Nirvana performing without Dave Grohl.
Yeah, it really is. Like, I mean,
even though they had their first whole album without him.
Yeah.
But you can see them playing, and you can see that there's some angles from behind their drummer at the time and a few other cutaway shots. So you know that see the cameras, so you know that they shot it a few times.
Mm-hmm. Now, but before you get a little more into your facts about the album, I'm going to go ahead and read the track list for anybody who might not be familiar. And I'm also going to mention that, musically speaking, this is Nirvana's heaviest album, or at least heavier album.
Yeah.
They almost
their rawest album. I wouldn't necessarily say, like, I don't think it's their I mean, yeah, I guess it is their heaviest stuff, but I think it has the most raw feel to it.
Yeah, definitely. It's definitely their most raw album because, I mean, it's their first album. I'll read the track list. Blue, Floyd the Barber, About a Girl, which is a cover. Right?
Yeah.
School, Love Buzz, which is also a cover. Paper Cuts, Negative Creep, Scoff, Swap Meet, Mr. Mustache, and Sifting. And the bonus tracks from 1992 are Big Cheese and Downer, both of which, I mean, I easily associate with this album.
Yeah. And it's because
that's like on my copy, so
like most people, we only knew about the album after Nevermind blew up.
Mm-hmm, sure, yeah,
and it went backwards. So by then it was a re-release with now the according to Rangopedia, it says 600. I just lost it again. Just $606.17. Who was actually not even paid by that. It was Jason Everman, a guitarist who was impressed by Nirvana's demo with Dale Crover, the producer, supplied the money. So thank you, Dale. And Jason. And I'm sure that was a worthwhile investment. Maybe not immediately, but it is Sub Pop's best-selling album to date at 1.9 million copies.
So Jason Everman was from Soundgarden and also played guitar with Nirvana, but was from Soundgarden, and Soundgarden is the reason that Nirvana got signed to Sub Pop. Well, basically Chris Cornell.
Yeah.
That's one of the fascinating things I like about grunge is this is back, mid late 80s. So there's no internet. All the bands like knew each other and were friends with each other and would tour with each other and hang out. Like they toured with Sonic Youth, they toured with Soundgarden, everybody. And I remember Sonic Youth talked about like they would open for them, and at the end of their set, they'd smash up all their stuff, which is a now famous and iconic Nirvana move. But back then, like they were Sonic Youth was like, you guys don't have any money. How are you doing that?
Yeah. And I don't know if they were serious, but in an interview, I believe it was Kurt said it keeps them from having to do encores.
Yeah.
So
do you guys have a favorite track?
Mine is Mr. Mustache.
I don't know. I don't know if I can pick one, but an interesting thing is a song that doesn't get a whole lot of love, and I don't know if I've ever heard played live, is The Big Long Now, which was going to be part of Bleach.
Yeah.
But was omitted from the album because I like how they say vocalist guitarist Kurt Cobain, in case they're like, who is this Kurt Cobain they're talking about? Felt there was already enough slow, heavy stuff on Bleach, and he didn't want to go he wanted that song out. So. But
yeah, like Big Long Now is a really good song.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a few, like, there's not such, I don't think there's a bad Nirvana song. There's a few songs that I don't personally dig that much, but like Big Long Now, especially like if you're just kind of feeling sad and you just kind of want to, vent a sad mood, Big Long Now is a good like, song to enjoy while you might not be feeling too good. And I know that sounds weird, but like sometimes when people feel down, they want to just delve into sadness a little more, and that it helps. It sounds backwards, but it helps people.
Yeah. So
this was pre-emo, before emo was a thing.
Yeah. But they're very famous also of saying that they work on the music, and then reading this article, it said that most of the lyrics for the album were written the night before. The lyrics were a very, very low priority. So it's just whatever he just felt like works with the music, and was like good enough, whatever.
Which I think is a Nirvana thing anyway, because
that's what I'm saying.
On Lithium, there's the lyric, "One more special message to go, then I'm done and I can go home."
Yeah.
And that was said because what he's talking about is they had one more song to record, and then that was it for the day. That's the meaning of the lyric.
So basically, the meaning of the lyric is don't look into the meaning of the lyrics because there aren't really any.
Although a lot of, from what I know, I bought a book. It's called the story behind every single Nirvana song, and it talks in depth, especially about Bleach. There's actually a lot of like really like in-depth stuff on some of these songs, like Paper Cuts. Paper Cuts has like a really dark meaning to it, and it's not just like a joke.
So Paper Cuts is more like deep cuts.
Yes. Floyd the Barber is kind of a jokey song because it's based on.
Is that our Dave Dad joke?
Yeah,
of the stream.
Like Floyd the Barber is kind of a jokey song because it's based on the world of the Andy Griffith Show. It's about a guy who goes into a barber shop for a haircut and gets killed. But if you read the lyrics, it's actually kind of darkly funny. School could be considered not that deep. Love Buzz is a cover. Paper Cuts is very deep. Negative Creep is kind of deep. Mr. Mustache is very deep. Swap Meet is pretty deep. And that's just a few examples of like they could go up and down between deep and shallow.
And going back to when we've had Felix on in the chat, we used to, as we said, go to the chat room for the Palace.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
For South Park.
Yeah.
And when I was signing up for an account for that, I was trying to think of a good username, so I ended up going with this Bleach.
Yeah. He's yeah. Speaking of connections to song titles, the second song, Floyd the Barber, has a weird connection to me because when I was a scare actor in Slaughter Cinema, my character's name was Floyd, and he was a barber. And so I look at my schedule and I was like, that has to be on purpose. There's no way they just named him Floyd and made him a barber. Now, Floyd the Barber was the name of the character from the Andy Griffith Show. But I suspect, knowing how show direction works, that they took it from the Nirvana song.
Oh yeah, it had to have been done intentionally.
Yeah.
One thing really interesting to me about a girl specifically, when I think about that song, I don't really think about the Bleach version. I think about the Unplugged in New York version.
Sure.
And even when he starts that track, he even says, "This is from our first album. Most people don't own it."
Yeah,
like
I remember
he has that
hearing that.
self-awareness of kind of the evolution of what that track is.
Yeah.
Well, it's also a reference to like most people were listening to just the popular songs and never cared enough to buy their previous album or even to find out that there was a previous album. They just listened to all the popular songs because they're just following other people who are like, oh, I like Nirvana. Well, I like them too. But I remember when I first heard the Unplugged album, I was like, I own it. I didn't own it when Nevermind came out, but I would have if I knew about it.
I kind of wish I could have, heard about or like gone to one of those Unplugged concerts. Like, not necessarily.
Like my sister did.
Oh, which one?
Yeah, I told you that my sister used to work for Sony, and she was in the audience at the Alice in Chains Unplugged concert.
Oh man.
Oh, that's a killer one too.
Yeah.
So
I was like,
good.
oh, you are so lucky.
Oh, that Unplugged version of Wood. Oh, so good.
And apparently they screwed up more times than you hear on the album, because the one song is like, no, wait, I screwed up.
Yeah.
They still do Unplugged every once in a while. It comes out on MTV too. The most recent one, I think Adele had one, and it's more popular poppy type stuff now, which makes sense to be unplugged. It's not. I can't even think of like a modern, really awesome rock band that'd be like, oh yeah, they should do blah 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 Unplugged.
Right.
Think about maybe Muse. Muse could be good Unplugged.
Yeah, I can see that.
They have a very kind of prog feel about
did
them.
Did Radiohead ever do
really
acoustic
cool.
shows?
I think
I saw Stone Temple Pilots back in the 90s, and they actually did 3 separate sets. They did a rock set, and then they stopped and did an unplugged set in the middle of the show, and then went back and did a 3rd rock set. It was crazy.
Cool.
More people should appreciate Unplugged. It was a good time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know if they're modern, but I'd like to see Mushroom Head.
Cool. Yeah. I'd like to see them again too. That'd be nice.
No, Unplugged.
Oh.
We're talking about Unplugged.
Yeah. Yeah, a Mushroom.
I think Slipknot could pull it off, especially that new Slipknot album. I mean, I could think of a lot of especially like, I know people are going to say Wait and Bleed and like kind of single type stuff, but I could think of a lot of Slipknot songs that would translate in an unplugged setting.
Yeah, especially because so much of their music is percussions.
Yeah.
I can't think of anybody else, but I think both of those would be cool. Call MTV, get them on the line.
Yeah. Now, wasn't it? I think I was looking it up. I don't know if it was MTV that did Unplugged or if they just were the network that it was on. I think I don't remember if it was like an external production, because I feel like it was something like that. But it said going back to Bleach, it was the re-release debuted as at 89 on the Billboard 200, which is kind of weird that they say Billboard 200 when it's under 100, but whatever. And to prove that a lot of good rock music comes from the UK and their taste is very good, it peaked at 33 on the UK charts and 34 on the Australian charts.
Cool.
So
I had no clue I had that kind of international reach.
yeah, apparently it did.
So to answer your question, Dave, yes, it seemed like MTV was the facilitator. The entire title is MTV Unplugged.
Right. But I think it's like a separate entity from MTV.
Possibly. I mean, it might have its own like people running it, and who decides to come on and where it is and the whole thing.
You guys want to do a couple more albums?
Yeah, there's a lot more amazing information on this page, but I didn't really get to read it through because I didn't start till earlier, and I was working on other stuff. So, what else do we have here?
Well, two specific ones that I think are probably really influential to talk about, and I don't know that it's that hard rock, but it's definitely a rock album, is Disintegration by The Cure. That came out in 1989, and that to me is probably one of the closest albums to perfection ever. That's the album that has Love Song on it. My favorite song by The Cure is Fascination Street, and it's on that album as well. I think those are both really, really strong, kind of moody, I don't want to call it like early alternative. The Cure was really super influential on a lot of the bands in the 90s that we consider to be alternative, and The Cure kind of, by the time stuff was really rolling in the 90s, The Cure kind of fell by the wayside, even though Robert Smith is amazing. But I think that's an album that came out in 1989 that's pretty darn close to perfect. Really, really good album.
Going back to South Park just for a minute, the episode where they have to fight Barbra Streisand, she turns into Mecha Barbra Streisand.
Yes.
And, Robert Smith of The Cure comes and saves the day.
Yep.
When he leaves, they go, Robert Smith is the greatest person who ever lived. Disintegration is the best album in history.
Yep. The goth kids say that all the time. Disintegration is the best time. At my work, we have one of our machine operators there, and I think he's like 22 years old, who wears a Cure shirt all the time. And I tell him, like, you don't know about The Cure. You're not old enough to know about The Cure.
So, the track listing for Disintegration is Plain Song, Pictures of You, Close Down, Love Song, Last Dance, Lullaby, Fascination Street, Prayers for Rain, The Same Deep Water as You, Disintegration, Homesick, and Untitled.
The Cure's underrated. I think a lot of goth kids want to talk about how awesome like Morrissey and the Smiths are, but really when you like the Smiths, I think you really just like The Cure. So
well, the way I heard it, like the Smiths are a lot more depressing than The Cure was, and so maybe that's why it's got more of the goth appeal.
Yeah, I could see that. I don't think Morrissey's that nice of a guy to work with, whereas everything that I've ever read about Robert Smith just talks about how amazing he is. So,
oh, that was the one button that I needed to do this whole time. It was stuck like it was playing a video, but it wasn't. Okay, cool. So
we're back.
33 minutes and 50 seconds into the stream, I finally found
rock and roll
the right thing. This program is awesome, except it's got some really crazy quirks that I don't know how to work around sometimes.
Merlo, are you ready to rock out making music video history?
Let's hit it. Awesome. Oh, God. Yeah,
all right. So that's The Cure. That's another amazing 1989 album. I know one that we've talked that we got waylaid in Dave and Brian live one time. I know that me and Brian have talked about Paul's Boutique multiple times.
I know that a lot of people say that's their favorite Beastie Boys
I
album.
love the Beastie Boys, and I love Paul's Boutique. I mean,
for me, it's
anything that kicks off with "Shake Your Rump." Like, how do you not love that? It has "Hey Ladies" on it. That's like the greatest song.
Yeah, I definitely like the album. I just like License to Ill more.
No,
License to Ill isn't bad. Really, honestly, I can't think of any Beastie Boy. Like, if somebody was like, I'm gonna put a Beastie Boys album on, I'd be like, okay, just like whichever one, like whatever you're good with.
I can. After Ill Communication, after that album, I didn't like anything else.
Especially Ill Communication, Paul's Boutique, and License to Ill. Those are all really good, solid Beastie Boys albums. So the track listing for Paul's Boutique is To All the Girls, Shake Your Rump, Johnny Royale, Eggman, High Plains Drifter, The Sounds of Science, 3 Minute Rule, Hey Ladies, 5-Piece Chicken Dinner, Looking Down the Barrel of a Gun, Car Thief.
Oh boy, are we gonna go through the entire list of the final one?
Of what?
We're gonna go through every little part of the final because that's a pretty crazy one.
Oh, yeah. So, number 12, What Goes Around Comes Around, Shadrach, Ask for Janice, and then what Dave was talking about, the final track is called B-Boy Babalise. However,
Bouillabaisse. B-boy bouillabaisse.
It
means a soup.
B-Boy's Bouillabaisse. So, what Dave was talking about is B-Boy Bouillabaisse. And thank you for mentioning that, Brandy, because like I was always wondering, like, why is this last song 5 or 6 different songs?
That's even more than that.
It means like a stew. It's like stuff mixed together.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the Slaughter Cinema of Beastie Boys.
It really is.
Exactly.
So it's labeled A through L. I'm sorry, A through I. So 59 Christie Street, Get on the Mic, Stop That Train, A Year and a Day, Hello Brooklyn, Dropping Names, Lay It On Me, Mike on the Mic, and AWOL. Those are the sections of B-Boy Bouillabaisse.
I have to admit or to confess, I actually heard Vanilla Ice's "Stop That Train" before Paul's Boutique, and I heard Paul's Boutique. I'm like, oh, hey, I've heard this somewhere before.
Actually, that's true for me as well. I heard Vanilla's album, and then I end up getting into the Beastie Boys.
Yeah, I loved the Beastie Boys. It was Licensed Ill. I just didn't go back forward. I hadn't discovered Paul's Boutique yet.
Yeah.
Did you not like Hello Nasty with Intergalactic on it and Body Moving? How do you not love that album? That's like
those
best
are good
90s
songs.
part
Yeah,
album
there are a couple songs, but the other songs are just, I don't know. Maybe it was just where I was at that time.
Well, I'm kind of with Dave. Like, some of Hello Nasty is like really outstanding.
Yeah.
And then some of it is just like, eh. But like, to me personally, Paul's Boutique is a solid album from start to finish. Like,
Oh yeah.
like seriously.
Yeah, well, if License to Ill is 100, like for me, like Paul's Boutique is like 95, 96.
Yeah, sure.
So, they're practically the same, but I just like License to Ill a little bit more. And Paul's Boutique, unfortunately or fortunately, I guess depending on which side of you're on of this, is an album that would be extremely difficult to make today.
Oh yeah.
Because there's so many it's an album of samples, which is amazing. There's a really cool story behind it too. Of I can't believe that License to Ill was not that successful of an album commercially. So they had a time in their life where they were just kind of hanging out and like trying to come up with a new album, and their record label wasn't happy with them, and they just started going to music stores and buying album after album after album after album and just buying all this vinyl. And then that's what became Paul's Boutique, because they listened to all these albums like, oh, I like this part, and this part, and they just threw it together.
Yeah.
Not threw it together, but all those little influences came in to make the album. But it's just crazy to think that License to Ill and the band itself was considered a failure at first.
So what Dave is talking about, at least with the samples, is there was a time in hip hop where you did not need to.
Oh, music anyway. In general.
Yeah, you didn't need to credit your sample,
or at least people didn't pursue. It's legit. That is just. They didn't hire lawyers and go after people who use samples and were making money off their samples.
until
litigious. I'm still saying it wrong.
Until Vanilla Ice and Ice Ice Baby.
Yep.
Because he used All right. So, in a kind of famous example, the bass line from Under Pressure is slightly altered in Ice Ice Baby.
Has one extra hi-hat.
Yeah. And so he got accused of, plagiarizing, and he tried to defend himself and saying, well, no, it's not the same. That their bass line goes like this, my bass line goes like this, but he got taken to court about it, and the result was anytime you sample anybody else's music, you have to give them credit.
And well, at minimum, most more likely you need to get legal permission.
Yeah.
And it's up to the rights owner. Now, if they were like, hey, we really like what you did with the album and what there's your song, you took something that I recorded, but you changed it and like put my name on your album and we're good. Like, you can do that, but it's up to the people who own the music, which in a lot of cases isn't the artist, it's the label. So they can go always to no, we own that sample, you can't use it, and we'll take you to court if you do it. So
on a similar note, what Weird Al does is called parody. According to, I think it's fair use, according to the trademark laws for that, he doesn't need permission to do a parody. Even if the music is note for note perfect, it's changed enough to a point where it's something else now. However, Weird Al insists on getting permission from the original artist to do before he releases a parody.
Yeah.
There's only a few people who have said no. Prince has said no. Actually, he would ask Prince every year to do a parody, and Prince always said no. And Paul McCartney told him no because it was going to be a parody of Live and Let Die, and it was called Chicken Pot Pie.
That would have been amazing.
Yeah.
They let Guns N' Roses do it. Why wouldn't they let Weird Al do it?
Because Guns N' Roses did a cover, so like they credited the artist. The reason Paul McCartney said no is because Paul McCartney is a strict vegetarian, and so he didn't want to advocate the consumption of animal flesh in a parody.
I mean, he could have just made it tofu pot pie.
Yeah, but Weird Al has gone on to explain that the chorus was going to have chickens clucking in the whole thing. So instead of the dun, 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 dun,
yeah, well, the Beatles are the band who sued Sesame Street, which just seems so wrong.
Over what?
The Let It Be. They had
they did Let Her Be.
Yeah, I don't know, a sketch or whatever, and this song was a parody. It says Let Her Be. My mom whispered to me, "Let her be," and yeah, they got taken to court. I'm like, how can you sue Sesame Street?
Yeah, that's a little too far for me.
I have a relatively interesting copyright law anecdote that can loop us back around to Nine Inch Nails. And Nine Inch Nails, 2008, it came out. There is a series of albums. It's called Ghosts 1 through 4, which are instrumental albums that Trent released basically with the intent for other artists to pick them up and sample them.
Oh,
yeah, sure.
They weren't produced, like they don't have any lyrics to them. They're not fully fleshed out songs, that kind of thing. And that album is actually where the guitar piece to Old Town Road comes from.
Yes.
And Lil Nas X, the rapper that does Old Town Road, found Ghost 4, just searching through samples on the internet, used it, put Old Town Road together, released it, and then had to go back and ask Trent, hey, so Old Town Road is getting ready to be the biggest thing to every elementary school kid in the world. So how about you release this for me? And Trent was really, really nice about it and released it. And he actually gets songwriting credit on Old Town Road and just won a Country Music Songwriters Association award for Take My Horse to the Old Town Road. So technically Nine Inch Nails song.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, I mean, if you release it specifically to be sampled and then be like, nope, you can't use it, it'd be kind of.
Yeah, that'd be a dirty move.
Yeah. And
He really embraced it. I think I saw a thing where Lil Nas X invited him to be in the music video, but he turned it down. He was like, "Nah, I'm not taking my horse anywhere, guys."
Well, he wants to take his horse to the hotel room.
Maybe.
That's one of those misheard lyrics. People think it sounds like you're saying, "I want to take my horse to the hotel room."
Really? I don't see how you could mishear that, but okay.
I hear it. I didn't know what it was.
He's got his horses in the back.
That makes it funny though. I'm gonna take my horse to the hotel room and ride till I can't ride no more.
Yeah.
Okay.
How big's that room?
I've never listened to the whole song because I heard a little bit. I'm like, it's not the
And
kind
that's
of music
because y'all don't have kids. If you had kids, you would have been exposed to Old Town Road over and over.
Actually,
and over.
I don't have kids, and I've heard Old Town Road over and over again.
I've heard little bits of it, but
I've heard the original and the remix.
The remix is better because it's like 45 seconds longer. If you
Yeah.
listen to the original Old Town Road, it's like less than 2 minutes long. So that means kids want to listen to it on repeat
yeah.
over and
And
over and over.
the original video to it is just someone playing Red Dead Redemption, riding around on their horse like out in the desert.
That's exactly what it is.
By the way, Brian
And
Elmer.
that's how pervasive Nine Inch Nails has made it into American culture now. So.
yeah.
Brian Elmer says Marilyn Manson should do an unplugged show.
Huh.
Yeah, that would be cool. I
I think they
It's
did
an
have
unplugged. I think
a
it'd be cool.
song or two like that. But what was I gonna say? But yeah, I did see a song of his, and I think it was he and another guy just with the guitar, doing his cover of "Sweet Dreams."
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah. All right, Brandon, let's go ahead and move on. What's another album from 1989?
Okay, let me get back to my list here.
Yeah, I did that.
Because
fun
now
thing.
I've searched Old Town Road, so that's all that's going to come up for like
Oh.
the rest of my
Oh,
Google
I know.
eternity.
Yeah,
So.
Speaking of the Ghost 124, what was the album that had the hand that feeds?
Oh,
Was that with teeth, or is that
yeah,
was
it was
before?
either with
Yes.
Teeth.
He also released a cappella versions of a few of those songs to the internet specifically to challenge people to make it their own song with just his vocals, and then posted
Brilliant.
the ones that he liked.
The man is brilliant overall.
So that, and the Beastie Boys did that as well. They released some of their vocals stripped out of the song, and it's like, here you go, do whatever you want to them.
The Beastie Boys will release companion albums a lot of times too. Like I know Hello Nasty has a remix album that just goes with Hello Nasty that like has that Fatboy Slim body moving on it and some other exclusive tracks.
Oh, that's right. I did hear that album. I forget. It was I bought I forget what a DVD that had a compilation of all their albums, all their music videos, and there's a lot of remixes on that DVD that I ended up ripping and just listening to them. So yeah, I think I've heard a bunch of those. The interesting thing about Body Moving is that for the official music video, they used the Fatboy Slim remix, not the original.
Yeah, that's true. It's actually kind of funny that listening to the original Body Moving, I'm like, something's missing here. This isn't quite as good as, and Fatboy Slim, the remix that Fatboy Slim did, just like that's a total like A+ for me.
Yeah.
Speaking of companion albums, Brandy, so I'm gonna go kind of obscure here, and it has nothing to do with 1989, but there's a metal band called Neurosis, and they had a side project called Tribes of Neurot, and it's Tribes of Neurot is like this very ambient musical project thing, and so what you could do is there were certain albums that were designed specifically to be companions to a Neurosis album, and you could put a stereo on one side of the room, another stereo on the other side of the room, and play both albums, and they would sync up together.
So
I see this. I have never heard of this before. That's super cool.
Yeah, the Beastie
Is there like a
Boys-
standout track or a specific album you would recommend?
By what? By Neurosis?
Yeah.
I would personally recommend Through Silver and Blood. That's their big album. They're not drone metal, but they're definitely pushing into drone metal territory. The album feels long. It kind of like wears you out a little bit because just the music is slower, but it's like very heavy and it's very chugging and very angry. But
All right. Here's a couple more 1989 albums, and I'm
All right.
just going to throw them out there. I don't have a ton to say about any of these. Faith No More, The Real Thing, came out that year.
Mhm.
We can talk about the Universal tie-in on how they're not using Epic for their Epic universe, but Epic came out that year.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, not yet. I mean, we haven't seen the ads.
I mean, if they don't use that song, it's like that's the immediate first thing I think of. Mother's Milk by the Chili Peppers came out that year. Let's see what else is on here is really good. Pump by Aerosmith came out. That's not like a highlight of 1989 for me, but I know that was a humongous album that came out that year.
Getting back to the Beastie Boys for a second, it's the Beastie Boys Anthology, which is from the Criterion Collection from Capitol Records. That had all. It was a multi DVD set that it came out in 2000 with a whole bunch of their music videos, and you can select alternate audio, which is the remix, the remixes.
by the way, I don't know why, but every remix I've ever heard of, why am I forgetting?
Brian also says Trent is concerned about his if there is a lingering storm. Oh, about his fans.
That's true. The time that we saw Nine Inch Nails, there was a terrible lightning storm, and he made everybody that was in the outdoor venue come into the covered part. It was really awesome.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So every remix I've ever heard of Super Disco Breaking by the Beastie Boys has been,
Yes, that's the jam.
but every remix I've ever heard has been less energy than the original song, which I don't understand how you do that. They keep the vocals, and the vocals are very high energy, but like it's all been like chill mixes and just like these slower mixes, and I'm like, what are you doing, man? You have this. Pump it up, man.
Well,
Get
it
some
has to
energy.
be
in
high
there.
energy because that's the lead song off Hello Nasty.
Yeah.
Super Disco Breakin' is the that's what you start off with. So they want to have pumped up. But I think when you do a remix of something, you're looking at it as a standalone song and not as a portion of an album.
Yeah.
When Brian and I went to go see Roger Waters for the first time, we went to see I wish we got to see this tour more than once, but the Dark Side of the Moon tour.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a thunderstorm that was rolling in during, what song was it? A song that actually has lightning in the visuals on stage. And it was pretty cool because it was the show and then all this lightning around in the background, which worked out pretty well. And then after the concert ended, it got poured on. But,
Oh yeah, I remember that.
but that's the closest I've ever been to being in a lightning storm at a concert. So were you at that concert with the thunderstorm? I know we talked about that. I forgot. With Nine Inch Nails.
I was. We saw that show together. It was probably about 2005, maybe.
Now, did you have seats or were you in the lawn?
We were in the lawn, but after it started thunderstorming, we had seats.
Oh, nice. Wait, was the seat section not sold out?
A lot of people left. The weather was absolutely miserable, and the lawn kind of became like Woodstock '94 mud pit
Oh yeah,
situation. We saw it coming, so we just like dressed for the weather, and we're
yeah.
just there to like party and have a good time in the lawn. But after the lightning came in, they were going to have to evacuate us out. So instead of closing the show and evacuating it out, he just moved everybody under the thing. They opened the gates up.
Oh, that's
Oh,
really
okay.
cool. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
I was just wondering what Trent actually said because he said that he actually was concerned about
He
instead of just,
was
like, being
concerned.
up
He
on
like
stage
they
and like whatever.
stopped. They stopped like halfway through the set, and they came out. And he came out and was like, "Well, if everybody's leaving, then anybody that stays can come on up." So we stayed and we came on up. So
Oh, okay.
That's
it's
pretty
killer
awesome.
show, absolutely amazing show.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome.
That's one of the bands that, even though it's just him, I guess on Tori's the band, I've never got to see. Unfortunately, we missed Nirvana.
Mm-hmm.
We missed original Alice in Chains,
Mm-hmm.
although they came back. I had a great opportunity to see Stone Temple Pilots, but didn't do it. And we finally, I'll never get to see Pink Floyd, but we got to see Roger Waters,
Yeah, and as far as I'm concerned, that's basically seeing Pink Floyd.
and not at all to me.
I mean, look, that band played everything perfectly,
Yeah,
and it's Roger singing on
It's-
bass.
it's almost saying a cover band, but
I don't see it like that. I mean, okay, it's not seeing Pink Floyd. I understand that. However, I'm seeing like Red Floyd or something. I don't know. It's basically Pink Floyd to me. I mean, I'm getting exactly the experience I would have gotten with Pink Floyd. It's the lead singer.
well,
Well, sometimes lead
bassist.
singer. The guitar player can do everything David Gilmour does. The band plays perfectly. It's basically, yes, it's not Pink Floyd, but for all intents and purposes, it's Pink Floyd. Yeah, so I don't see it seeing like a cover band because I've seen cover bands. I have. I went
Yeah.
and saw
but a cover band is musicians that are not the original musicians playing that musician's music.
yes, but
Most of the people that were playing with him were not in Pink Floyd, so that's most parts of a cover band.
now I've gone to classic albums live, and I actually saw Led Zeppelin 3? No. Zozo. I saw them before the album of Zozo, so the one with Going to California on it. And the dude hit the high notes and Going to California like awesome. And apparently it was John Bonham's son on drums that night. But like, that was seeing a cover band. It really was. I mean, they did a great job. They performed phenomenally, but it was seeing a cover band. Like it didn't. Had I seen actually Led Zeppelin perform the album live, it would have had a whole different energy, and this wasn't that case. Now seeing Roger Waters, I felt like I was getting exactly what I would have gotten had I gone back in time 20 years and seen Pink Floyd in its original incarnation, seeing this exact track list and the exact same energy. I think it would have been totally the same.
I'm wondering why. I know why Gilmore didn't go with him, but Nick Mason was, is still going. I don't know if they ever tried to get him to perform with Roger on tour, because I don't think he has any issues. I don't think they have any issues with each other.
I don't know.
But I was hoping that they would maybe do that, but they didn't. And of course, unfortunately, Richard is no longer with us. And I didn't realize that he was. I thought he was kicked out of the band, but kind of was. Recording The Wall, I believe, because he had been going through a whole bunch of stuff and he was really depressed and just wasn't into it, and wasn't contributing much to the album. And even David Gilmour, who was great friends with him, like, yeah, well, I don't agree with Roger, but I also have to say that he wasn't contributing much, um, and it turns out it's because he had gone through a messy divorce and a bunch of other things.
Yeah.
And it wasn't because he didn't care. He just that's what it looked like on the outside.
It's hard to bring a lot of emotional energy when you're going through rough patches sometimes.
And unfortunately, The Wall was the band who kind of destroyed Pink Floyd.
Yeah.
And and then you have the Rolling Stones, which are still going.
Well,
and I wish that Pink Floyd could have continued like that, but unfortunately, it didn't happen.
The way I understand it, after they completed The Wall, and The Wall was this giant success, Roger said, "We've done everything creative we need to do. I want to retire the name Pink Floyd. We can all continue as a band, but I want a new band name, and I want to retire the name Pink Floyd." It was apparently David didn't agree, and that's where the conflict comes from. Is Roger and David not seeing eye to eye, and so Roger went solo, and Momentary Lapse of Reason was the first Pink Floyd album without Roger.
And it's funny because I heard it was David Gilmour who said that, because it was during an arena show when it's pretty crazy to me to think that people used to bring in fireworks, like actual fireworks, into a concert and set them off in the crowd. Like that won't happen anymore, as it shouldn't. But understandably, at least to me, Roger Waters got very upset that people were setting off fireworks and just being disruptive, and like, hey, there are people who came to see this show, and there's the recording is on YouTube somewhere. It's like Roger Waters loses it. I'm like, I don't know if that's really accurate. He says there are a lot of people who want to hear the song. And he says, I want to hear the song.
Yeah.
And I think it might have been that concert where David Gilmour walked off and went to the back in the sound booth and watched the rest of the show as a fan, and that was kind of the part of the end of them getting along. And Roger Waters, really, it was his album. The Wall was really his album, and he kind of pushed his way around, and everyone else is kind of just playing on his album.
Well, I know that The Wall is a deeply personal album for him, especially lyrically, but I mean, if you're bringing a lot to the table, I don't see why, like one person can't, have a majority of, the creative input for like a certain album. It doesn't mean that everyone else in the band, is just no good or has no ideas. It's just, this one particular guy has a lot of, ideas, and
I think it was more of him being kind of a bully.
Maybe. Maybe it was,
pushing everyone else out. I'm the important one here. But I have to go back and look at it. It just didn't go well for them. And then poor Richard is going through a lot of stuff and doesn't really understand it, and the band even doesn't understand it, and that didn't go well. And Richard finally went back became part of the band again after they parted ways with Roger, and then that Bryan Adams looking guy became part of the band, who I don't know if that was a relative of one of the band members, but he played the bass on their Pink Floyd's final tour, which, man, I'll always wish I could have gone to see that.
Yeah.
That show looked just amazing.
Yeah. But one of the reasons I say, like, I feel like I've seen Pink Floyd, even though I haven't ever seen Pink Floyd, I feel like I have. When we saw the Us Plus Them tour, and they played think it was dogs, and they dropped the Factory from Animals down. Like I feel like that was kind of akin to seeing the disco ball drop during what's the name of
Pulse.
that? Yeah, Pulse.
Or the Division Bell tour.
Yes. Because like I got to see that in person. I got to see.
That was insane.
Yeah, I got to see that in person, and I don't, even if I had a smartphone, I don't want to do this during a concert.
I did like a few clips here and there. And
Sure. And I get documenting your time. You know, I get like, hey, I'm going to a concert. You know, let's document it a little bit for memories.
Yeah.
But like at the same time, like
that's what Roger says is like he goes to a concert and all he sees all these screens and like you guys are looking at your screens and you're not even in the moment.
Yeah. But like I got to see like this factory drop down from the ceiling. It's
out of nowhere. Like how did that even happen?
Yeah, and it's the Factory from Animals, and like first it dropped down, and I'm like, oh, that's great, and then it like inflates and like becomes the actual Factory from Animals. I'm like, I'm witnessing this in person. Like I'm not seeing this on YouTube. I'm not reading about this. This is real for me, and that's incredible. You know, and yeah, sure. Seeing when you can't be somewhere in person, like seeing it on YouTube or in a movie or read about it, you know, like you can feel like you're there. But like there's some sort of magic to like going to a concert and seeing this wonderful thing in front of you, like with your eyes. And, you know, like knowing that, I mean, even if you're in the nosebleeds and you're like, well, yeah, that's the guy, you know, he's right there.
Yeah. That's why they became their shows became so elaborate.
Yeah.
It's because the show crowd got bigger and bigger and bigger, and to the point where like you can't even see the band anymore.
Yeah.
So they put in all these increasingly incredible visuals for the people who couldn't see the band anymore, and then it became a problem where when we saw Roger Waters, it's like, do you want to get really close and see the band, or you want to get really far away and see the show? Which one do you want? You have to choose.
Thankfully, we did both for the wall tour.
Yeah.
We were up in not quite the nosebleeds, but we were in the upper seats for one, and then we were on the floor. Like I could have thrown something and hit Roger. Like we were that close.
Yeah. We got lucked out and bought reasonably inexpensive seats for that. Or I guess they were seats. I think that Pink Floyd, their lighting shows were just unparalleled.
Oh yeah.
Roger's tours he does amazing things with projections. What he did on this what they did for his tour is these screens that rolled up and rolled down and the projection mapping on the wall for the wall. Each brick would be put in place and just that part of the projection would fade in. But his lighting show is just but the projections are amazing. Where Pink Floyd had the screen in the center for their final tour and did some cool stuff with video, and they're more lighting.
Yeah.
Completely unrelated genre, but I went to see Lady Gaga on the Monster Ball specifically because I wanted to see the visual effects of the things that went with Lady Gaga's tour.
Yeah, sure.
That was when she had the big fountain that had the blood and had the humongous anglerfish puppets and a lot of crazy LED things. But I bought tickets and went to that show just specifically for the performance art aspect of the show.
And that's really cool. And
I thought about going to see U2 because I saw some pretty cool stuff from their shows.
I've seen U2, and I don't have the most amazing story about U2, but I was extremely disappointed in U2 because Bono reads his lyrics off a teleprompter. He has a screen at the bottom of the thing. We were seated in like a weird angle behind him, and we could see that Bono like every 5 seconds has to look down because he doesn't even know his own words anymore. He has a teleprompter in front of him.
Now, to clarify, was that when he was performing new songs, or was that like classics too?
No. It was the entire show. It was the
Wow.
entire show. And the vibe of the crowd when I saw U2 was also terrible. We saw them in Atlanta. And we thought it was going to be more of like a rocker crowd. It was on my mom was like, U2 was on her bucket list of shows. So we went with my mom, and even she didn't like it. It was not good.
Wow.
This was probably also, I'm trying to think what tour. It was after Zooropa. So it was post like Lemon. It was like kind of when they were in that like disco kind of phase. Do you remember when U2 like
Yes,
thought they were
I
disco
remember that.
for 2 albums? Yeah, it was not good. It was bad. Now, if you could have seen U2 like for Joshua Tree or something, like probably around, that time could have been amazing. But when we saw U2, you could just tell that Bono was over it. He was not feeling being Bono that night. So The Edge was amazing though. He was my favorite part.
But
So-
a few of the concerts, it looks like their setup was pretty elaborate and amazing, but I don't like the music.
They
enough
have
to go see it.
360 seating for U2, so you can be seated and be like completely like just staring at Bono's butt the whole time, and then he like walks around, and there's like circular aspects to the stage setup for that specific tour. That's how like I said, we were like kind of in a weird corner,
Yeah.
and we could read his teleprompter the whole time. So
Now, I remember,
like I'm pretty sure I know the words to "Where the Streets Have No Names" better than Bono does.
Yeah.
well, I think that's it. He must have been phoning it in, because like, how does he not know the words to that song?
I don't know. I mean, you would think after you made millions and millions of dollars singing the same songs over and over and over again. And I was disappointed they didn't do a lot of deep cuts of stuff where I would have felt like he would have needed that crutch.
Yeah.
So
Now, I have seen, so I guess we all know who Al Jurgensen of Ministry is, correct?
Jesus built his hot rod.
Yeah. So Dave Navarro does a podcast, and he had Uncle Al on, and toward the end, it was October. It was October of this year, actually. He had Al saying "Every Day Is Halloween," which is like from one of his.
That's so cool. That's like my fave Ministry song.
So it was actually an acoustic version.
Ministry Unplugged. It's all coming back.
So here's the funny thing. So like, I was reading from the lyrics from the sheet, which I understand, because Every Day Is Halloween is off their like first album with Sympathy, and so like it's not one of the major Ministry tracks. It's like one of the deep cuts. So like I can understand that, and they had Dave Navarro playing acoustic, but I think Al liked it so much that he actually did an acoustic version of Every Day Is Halloween with like a band, and he had vocalists come in. He had Dave Navarro back on guitar, acoustic guitar, and
right now I have to find that.
it's on Ministry's channel, Brandy. It's I think Every Day Is Halloween acoustic, and it's like one of the newest videos on the channel. But yeah,
Amazing.
huh?
That's amazing.
Yeah. Now, so that's an example of like, okay, what are the lyrics to this? I don't remember.
Yeah.
I haven't performed this song 25 years ago.
How many times we heard or watched recordings of Kurt Cobain forgetting his own lyrics?
Well, sure,
But that goes more back to what he said about not being very important.
yeah,
Might have been narcotic induced with him as well.
yeah.
But he said he just didn't care about the lyrics.
Now, speaking of technology that big bands have, I remember, I think it was the Octron Baby tour. It was something I saw on MTV. Wayne's World was big at the time, and U2 was big at the time, and I remember U2 was really pushing this technology stuff, and they basically did what was nowadays considered like FaceTime, or what we're doing now, Skype. But in 1992, they had Garth play drums live, except Garth wasn't there. Garth was playing drums on a video, but like they were doing like a live video call, like, but it was in 1992 or 3, and like I was like, man, this is so cool. This is just so cool.
It was probably about it was probably about 2000, 2001 when I saw them, and they did a part where they had everybody in the crowd send a text message to raise money for whatever African thing Bono was raising money for at the time. And then the text messages like immediately showed up on the screen behind Bono. That was kind of cool.
Yeah,
that was
yeah.
ahead of its time.
I've seen something like that, but like, would you say it was 2001?
I mean, yeah. I'm trying to think what tour it was specifically. I blocked it out of my memory because it wasn't good.
Well, I saw something very similar, but like years later, it had to be like when we went to the Rock Band nights at Falcons Pub. Like they would say, "Oh, text this to this number," and it was obviously a modded chat thing, but I remember, but that was like years later. It was like 7 years later or 6 years later. So it's always cool to see like these interesting technologies like be debuted by like people with like a lot of money.
Yeah.
And then, like slowly it goes into the mainstream. And
it was 2001. It was the Elevation tour.
Yeah. So like that's years before I saw it personally. But like, it's always cool to see things like that. Like, I don't know, it shows up in like some movie or something, or like some big rock star is like, "Hey, I like this cool technology," and then like 7 years later, like the public can afford it.
Going back quickly to the wall tour, Brian and I got to see one of the puppets malfunction.
Oh yes,
there was in the wall there was a specific area that wasn't being projected. It was just like white behind in the wall. That's because I think the girlfriend puppet was supposed to appear, and then disappear.
Yeah.
But it was just a bizarre gap in the projection, and it was a second night we saw it because it came 2 nights in a row. That's the only reason we're like, oh, one of the puppets didn't work tonight for some reason, and it's like we got an awkward white box on the wall.
Yeah.
Technical difficulties. We don't know anything about those.
But we wouldn't even know that was missing if we hadn't saw it the night before.
Yeah. It just goes to show that that's also rock and roll. It's like there's things going wrong, and like it should also make you feel better that like as many times as we do this and as routine it should be, like things just go wrong.
Yeah, like streaming perfectly and then 20 minutes later not touching almost anything.
Yeah.
We're suddenly these little mini windows.
Why is it different? What did I do? I didn't do anything.
They were scared of your hair.
Oh yeah.
Maybe.
Halloween's over, guys. What are you doing?
Yeah. We're not.
Guys, I don't have any other 89 albums to talk about. We covered it. There's a lot of other like little hits, like Stone Roses had a good one that year. The #1 album that year was Janet Jackson, Rhythm Nation. So that's really what the American public was. So
yeah.
But it just goes to show, like, and we've covered a lot. Like we talked about, like, I think it's a good time to wrap. But 1989 was a really good year for music, and I'm sure, like even if your genre is not rock, even if you like Brandy's just said, like if you're into Janet Jackson or pop music, you could probably go back to 1989 and find like some really good gems. So.
Brian says the Batman soundtrack from 1989. That's not even the good Batman soundtrack. That's the one that has the Prince song on it. The good Batman soundtrack actually is the one U2 song that I like. Hold me, kiss me, kill me through them. What? I can't ever say it correctly. Y'all know the song I'm talking about.
Yes, yeah. Party man.
Hold me, thrill me, kiss me, kill me. That's what it is.
Hey, Brian, I'm gonna order some balloons. How many do you want?
Yes.
Fail.
No, I'm so you're.
Hey Brian, I'm gonna order some balloons. How many do you want?
All of them.
Brandy, do you know the answer?
No, one red one, but don't go in the drain, Georgie.
You remember 200 balloons?
No, what's 200 balloons?
How about 99 Love Balloons?
Wasn't that Prince?
No, that's Nina.
But Prince did like half of the Batman 89 soundtrack.
200 balloons, Prince.
Yeah. She was talking about 99 Luftballons.
But that was a song on the, well, anyway.
It's funny. When Dark Knight came out, someone did a parody video on YouTube where it's talking about all the destruction Batman does throughout the city, and it like shows him just like bowling through cars. So it's that scene where like someone looks in the rear view and sees the Batmobile just like barreling toward them. In the video, they have Party Man from the Batman '89 soundtrack going, and it's funny because Shaun of the Dead mentions the Batman '89 soundtrack. It's like one of those soundtracks that just doesn't die.
It sticks with people.
Yeah.
I just think about that one part from the Prince song that they use in Legends of the Hidden Temple over and over again. The one like sound clip that's like do 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 do. It reminds me of Legends of the Hidden Temple.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Now we're
singles,
way off base.
singles and Hot 100 chart placings. One was Bat Dance. Next one
Yep.
was 200 Balloons.
Okay.
Apparently wasn't very popular because I'm the one who remembers it. So thanks for joining us for our technically challenged Rock Talk.
Hey, you got it together.
Yeah.
Finally figured out what was going on here. And
Thank you for everyone watching and chatting with us. Thank you, Brandy, for
Hopefully
joining us again. And thank you for the
get more chats in this show. It doesn't seem to be as popular yet, but we'll get there maybe.
yeah. Brandy, thank you again for the very good Spotify playlist idea. That was really awesome of
Yeah.
you.
It's live right now. It already has 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14. It already has 19 songs on it. Go check it out.
Cool.
Oh, cool.
Why don't you drop us
I thought you were talking about
the
how many people have already listened to it. I'm like, wait, why aren't the people watching us?
what is the link, Brandy? Or
It is, if you just go to Spotify and then you can search Rock Talk, FT period, Dave and Brian. And it's the very, like, if you type in Rock Talk, it's the second one that comes up.
all right.
Oh, all right.
Somebody else stole your show.
Yeah, like I said when we started, like, not the most original title, but it's fitting, so I'm going to go with it.
And so, if you want to do anything on Spotify, you have to have an account, Brandy.
You do have to have an account, but they're free.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and wrap up. So, thank you again, and have a good night, everybody.
Yeah, but how many shows named Rock Talk has this?
Yeah.
Oh, and it's not going to play. Yeah, this is the intro that was supposed to happen. You know, the really cool intro. That's where all the fire and explosions happened, because apparently it's not linked there. So, yeah, the cool intro that's not working. Apparently, we don't even have that anymore.
It's not in the budget, Dave.
Oh well.
Oh, here it goes. Maybe not.
So, with that failure, say goodbye.
Goodbye.